My name is Abigail Williams, and I am 32 years old. I never thought my own father would push me into a fountain at my brother Jackson's engagement party while screaming I was no longer his daughter. The guests actually clapped as I sat there soaking wet. They had no idea my husband Nathan was about to arrive and change everything. If you are watching this right now, take a second to let me know where you are watching from. I want to know who is about to witness how I finally stood up to my family after years of abuse. Trust me, this story is worth every minute. I grew up in the wealthy Williamson family where money was abundant, but love was scarce. My parents, James and Eleanor Williamson, made it clear from my earliest memories that my brother Jackson was the golden child. Our sprawling Connecticut estate, with its manicured gardens and marble statues, became my beautiful prison, a place where I never quite belonged despite being born into it. My childhood consisted of trying desperately to gain my parents' approval. While Jackson received praise for participation trophies and C grades, my straight A's and academic achievements were met with indifference. "That is what we expect from you, Abigail," my mother would say dismissively before turning her attention back to Jackson. I remember winning the state science fair in 6th grade, rushing home with my blue ribbon clutched in my hand, only to find my parents fawning over Jackson for scoring the winning point in his basketball game. My ribbon ended up in a drawer, never mentioned again. The neglect was not always subtle. Family vacations often featured Jackson front and center in activities, while I was left to entertain myself. Christmas mornings revealed piles of thoughtful gifts for Jackson, while I received practical items like school supplies or clothing my mother deemed appropriate. Birthday parties for Jackson were elaborate affairs with dozens of guests, while mine were afterthoughts, sometimes forgotten entirely until I timidly reminded them. "Jackson is sensitive and needs encouragement," my father would explain when I questioned the disparity. "You are naturally capable, Abigail. You do not need the same level of attention." Their dismissal of my emotional needs taught me early to suppress my feelings and present a composed exterior. I became the perfect, polite daughter who never caused trouble, hoping this would eventually earn their love. It never did. High school brought academic success, but social isolation. While Jackson attended parties and enjoyed the popularity that came with being a Williamson, I buried myself in books and extracurriculars. The few friends I made were never invited to our home. "They are not from suitable families," my mother would sniff whenever I asked. My straight A record and perfect SAT scores earned me acceptance to several Ivy League schools. I wanted to study art, having found solace in painting during my lonely childhood hours. "Absolutely not," my father declared. "No daughter of mine will waste her education on something so impractical. You will study finance or business, something befitting your station." I chose finance at Princeton, swallowing my dreams to please them. Their reaction was a nod and comments about how Jackson was considering Harvard. He eventually attended a state university after barely graduating high school, but my parents spoke of this as if it were equally impressive as my achievements. College became my first taste of freedom. Away from the suffocating atmosphere of home, I made friends who valued me for myself. Amanda and Taylor noticed how I flinched at criticism and apologized constantly. "Your family really did a number on you, Abby," Amanda said one night after I had a panic attack over getting AB on a midterm. "This is not normal pressure." Their perspective helped me see the toxic dynamic more clearly, though years of conditioning made it difficult to fully accept. I maintained perfect grades while working part-time, determined to prove my worth. Meanwhile, phone calls home revealed Jackson dropping courses and changing majors, with my parents making excuses for his journey of self-discovery. My relationship with my family deteriorated further when Jackson started dating Stephanie Carter during his final year of college. The Carters were old money, exactly the type of connection my parents valued. Suddenly, family gatherings centered around Jackson and Stephanie, their future together, the joining of two prestigious families. I became even more of an afterthought. Jackson himself had grown from a spoiled child into an entitled adult. Tall, conventionally handsome, and charming in public, he knew exactly how to manipulate our parents. "Abby just does not understand how the real world works," he would say with false sympathy when I questioned his latest scheme or bailout from our parents. "She lives in her books and spreadsheets." By graduation, I had secured a position at a respected financial firm in Chicago, deliberately choosing a city far from Connecticut and the family that had never truly seen me. My parents attended my graduation ceremony but left early to attend one of Jackson's baseball games. That night, alone in my dorm room, I made a promise to myself that I would build a life where I was valued and respected. Chicago welcomed me with anonymity and possibility. My apartment was small but mine alone, paid for with my own salary. The financial firm work was grueling with long hours and demanding clients, but I threw myself into it, determined to succeed on my own terms. My supervisor noticed my dedication and began giving me more responsibility, but the anxiety instilled by years of parental dismissal made me doubt every accomplishment. 6 months into my new life, on a rare day off, I sought refuge in a small coffee shop during a rainstorm. Soaked and frustrated, I ordered a large coffee and found a corner table where I could watch the rain pelt against the windows. I was so lost in thought I did not notice when someone approached my table. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" a deep voice asked. I looked up to see a tall man with kind eyes gesturing to the chair across from me. The coffee shop had filled during my daydreaming. "No, go ahead," I replied, moving my bag to make room. "Thanks." "I am Nathan Montgomery," he said, extending his hand. That chance meeting changed everything. Nathan was 30, a self-made tech entrepreneur who had started his company in his garage 5 years earlier. Unlike the polished, old money men my parents considered acceptable, Nathan had a genuine warmth that put me at ease. He asked questions and actually listened to my answers, something I had rarely experienced. "You analyze investments but wanted to study art?" he asked after I shared a bit about my background. "Do you still paint?" The question caught me off guard. No one had ever shown interest in that abandoned dream. "Not really," I admitted. "I do not have the time anymore." "That is a shame," he said. "Life is too short not to pursue what brings you joy." We exchanged numbers, and to my surprise, he called the next day to invite me to an art exhibition. Our first date stretched into 5 hours of conversation. I found myself sharing things I had never told anyone about my childhood and family dynamics. Instead of judgment, I received understanding. "Your achievements are impressive, Abigail," he said, "especially considering you had to fight for every bit of recognition. Your parents missed out on appreciating an extraordinary daughter." Tears filled my eyes at his words. Simple validation should not have felt so revolutionary, but it did. Our relationship progressed naturally. Nathan encouraged me to start painting again, converting a spare room in his loft into a studio space for me. "Just try," he urged, presenting me with quality supplies. "Not for your parents, not for me, but for yourself." The first time I picked up a brush again, I cried. Then I painted those tears, creating an abstract piece that expressed decades of suppressed emotion. Nathan found me hours later, surrounded by my first new work in years. "This is beautiful, Abby," he said softly. "This is who you truly are." With Nathan, I began the slow process of healing. He never pushed but provided steady support as I unpacked years of emotional neglect and verbal abuse. When I shared stories that normalized my family's behavior, he gently helped me recognize the toxicity. "That was not tough love," he would say. "That was emotional abuse, Abby. You deserved better." My relationship with Nathan contrasted sharply with my family's cold dynamics. His family welcomed me warmly during holidays, incorporating me into traditions without expectation or judgment. His mother, Linda, hugged me without reservation, something my own mother had never done. After 2 years together, Nathan proposed during a weekend trip to Lake Michigan. The ring was not flashy but perfectly suited to my taste, proving how well he knew me. I accepted through happy tears, feeling truly seen and valued. When I called my parents to share the news, my mother's first question was about Nathan's family background. My father wanted to know his net worth. Neither congratulated me. Jackson, now working at my father's company despite his mediocre qualifications, commented that I was settling without even meeting Nathan. We married in a small ceremony attended by close friends and Nathan's family. My parents and Jackson sent a generic gift but did not attend, citing an important business function. I pretended their absence did not hurt, but Nathan held me that night as I finally allowed myself to mourn the loving family I would never have. Our marriage thrived despite my family's disinterest. Nathan's tech company expanded rapidly, moving from local projects to national contracts. My career advanced as well, though I also began selling my artwork under a pseudonym, finding unexpected success in local galleries. We limited contact with my family to obligatory holiday calls and occasional visits when I felt emotionally strong enough. They remained unaware of Nathan's growing success or my artistic renaissance, assumptions about my mediocre life unchallenged by either of us. Nathan understood my reluctance to share our happiness with people who had never celebrated my joy. "Your achievements are yours," he said. "You do not need their validation anymore." His perspective helped me build confidence I had never possessed. The anxiety and self-doubt that had once governed my decisions began to fade. I stopped apologizing for existing and learned to trust my own judgment. When the invitation to Jackson's engagement party arrived in the mail, my first instinct was to decline. Jackson and Stephanie had been dating for 5 years, their relationship heavily promoted by both families. The thought of returning to my childhood home for another event centered around Jackson made my stomach churn. "We do not have to go," Nathan assured me. "Your mental health comes first." I stared at the elegant invitation, embossed with the Williamson and Carter family crests. Something inside me wanted closure, a chance to face my family as the strong woman I had become rather than the frightened girl who had left. "I think I need to do this," I said finally. "Not for them, but for me." The weeks leading up to the engagement party were complicated by an unexpected development. Nathan learned he needed to travel to San Francisco for a critical meeting with investors the same weekend as the event. "I can reschedule," he offered immediately. "You should not face your family alone." Part of me wanted desperately to accept his offer, but another part recognized this as an opportunity to prove something to myself. "No, this meeting is too important," I insisted. "I will be fine for one afternoon." Nathan looked unconvinced. "Are you sure? Your family has a way of undermining your confidence." "I am not the same person anymore," I said with more conviction than I felt. "Besides, it is just a few hours. I will make an appearance, congratulate Jackson and Stephanie, and leave before dinner." Despite my brave words, anxiety consumed me as the day approached. I selected my outfit with painstaking care, finally choosing an elegant navy blue dress that projected sophistication without ostentation. I purchased an expensive crystal vase as a gift, wrapped beautifully by the store clerk. The morning of the party, I stood before my mirror giving myself a pep talk. "You are successful. You are loved. Their opinions cannot hurt you anymore." The reflection staring back looked confident, but my racing heart told a different story. The drive from my hotel to my parents' estate brought back a flood of memories. Each familiar landmark triggered flashbacks of previous family gatherings that had ended with me crying alone in my room. The grand gates of the Williamson estate loomed ahead, and I momentarily considered turning around. Instead, I texted Nathan, "Arriving now. Wish you were here." His response came immediately, "You got this. Remember who you are now. Call me if you need me. I love you." Drawing strength from his words, I drove through the gates. The estate looked exactly as I remembered, manicured perfection without warmth. Cars lined the circular driveway, luxury brands gleaming in the sunlight. In the center of the expansive lawn stood an ornate fountain, water dancing in the summer heat. A valet took my keys with a polite nod, and I approached the front door with measured steps. The door opened before I could knock, revealing my mother. Eleanor Williamson had aged gracefully, her blonde hair now streaked with silver but impeccably styled, her figure slim in an expensive pale pink dress. "Abigail," she said, her tone suggesting mild surprise despite the RSVP I had sent weeks ago. "You actually came." "Hello, Mother," I replied, leaning in to kiss her cheek. She turned slightly, making it an awkward gesture. "Congratulations on Jackson's engagement." "Yes, well, we are very pleased. The Carters are a wonderful family." She glanced behind me. "Your husband could not attend?" The way she said husband carried a slight hint of dismissal, as if my marriage were somehow less legitimate than Jackson's engagement. "Nathan had an important business meeting in San Francisco," I explained, following her into the house. "He sends his congratulations." My mother made a noncommittal sound and led me to the back garden where the party was taking place. Crystal glasses caught the sunlight, white roses adorned every table, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. About 60 guests mingled on the lawn, the women in summer dresses and men in light suits. The fountain I had noticed from the front now served as a centerpiece for the garden arrangement. My father spotted me from across the lawn. James Williamson's once dark hair was now silver, but he maintained the commanding presence that had intimidated me throughout childhood. He approached with a glass of champagne in hand. "Abigail," he said with the same tone my mother had used. "What a surprise." "Hello, Father," I replied, maintaining my composure. "It is good to see you." "Is it?" he asked with a slight smirk. "We hardly hear from you these days." Before I could respond, Jackson appeared with Stephanie on his arm. My brother had gained weight since I last saw him, his once athletic frame now showing the effects of too many business lunches. Stephanie remained beautiful, with warm brown eyes and genuine smile. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," Jackson said, his tone jovial but with an undercurrent of mockery. "The prodigal sister returns." "Congratulations to both of you," I said, ignoring his tone and focusing on Stephanie. "I am very happy for you." Stephanie stepped forward and surprised me with a warm hug. "Thank you for coming, Abigail. Jackson has told me so much about you." I wondered what exactly he had told her, given our limited contact over the years. "All good things, I hope," I said lightly. Jackson laughed. "I told her you were always the serious one. Still working at that investment firm in Chicago?" "Yes," I replied simply, deciding not to elaborate on my career advancement or artistic pursuits. "Good for you," he said with faint condescension. "Stability is important." As Jackson and Stephanie moved to greet other guests, I found myself alone with a glass of champagne. I circulated among the party, exchanging pleasantries with distant relatives who barely remembered me and friends of my parents who asked the same questions repeatedly. "Still in Chicago? Not married yet? No children on the horizon?" Each question reinforced how little they knew about my actual life. I answered politely without correcting their assumptions, recognizing the futility of genuine conversation in this environment. During a moment alone near the dessert table, I overheard two of my mother's friends discussing me. "That is James and Eleanor's daughter, the one who moved away." "Oh yes, the plain one. Such a shame she never found her footing." "I heard she works some entry-level job in Chicago. Eleanor says she married some nobody. Did not even have a proper wedding. At least Jackson is making them proud. The Carters are absolutely thrilled with this match." I gripped my champagne glass tighter but maintained my expression. Their gossip stung despite my resolve to remain unaffected. I texted Nathan again, already regretting coming alone. His response bolstered me. "Their opinions are based on fiction. You know your truth. Also, just landed in SF. We'll call later." I managed a small smile and continued mingling. Stephanie's parents approached, introducing themselves with warmth that contrasted sharply with my own family's reception. "Abigail, we are so pleased to finally meet you," Mrs. Carter said. Stephanie mentioned you are in finance. That must be fascinating work. Their genuine interest caught me off guard. We chatted comfortably for several minutes until my mother appeared, subtly steering them toward more important guests with practiced social grace. As the afternoon progressed, I felt the familiar weight of being the family disappointment. Jackson's friends, many of whom I remembered from childhood, made subtle jabs about my absence from family events. "We thought you had fallen off the face of the earth," one commented. "Jackson suggested you might be too busy for family these days." I maintained my composure, responding with polite smiles and deflection. Inside, however, the old anxiety began creeping back, the voice that had always whispered I would never be good enough growing louder with each interaction. As the party reached its midpoint, servers began directing guests to take their seats for the formal toasts. I found my name card at a table far from the main family seating, placed among distant cousins and business associates who were clearly present for networking rather than celebration. My father approached the microphone set up near the fountain, champagne glass in hand. The garden fell silent as he prepared to speak. "Welcome, friends and family," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the lawn. "Eleanor and I are delighted to celebrate the engagement of our son Jackson to the lovely Stephanie Carter." He launched into an elaborate speech about Jackson's accomplishments, most of which were exaggerated or facilitated by parental intervention. According to my father, Jackson was single-handedly responsible for the recent success of the family business, despite having worked there only 3 years in a position created specifically for him. "Jackson has always made us proud," my father continued. "He embodies the Williamson spirit of excellence and dedication." After praising Jackson for several minutes, my father paused, seeming to notice me for the first time since beginning his speech. "And I should acknowledge that our daughter Abigail has joined us today," he added, almost as an afterthought. A rare appearance indeed. Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the crowd. I maintained a neutral expression despite the deliberate slight. "Now, I invite you all to raise your glasses to Jackson and Stephanie, the future of the Williamson legacy." Guests applauded enthusiastically while I took a small sip of champagne, fighting the familiar feeling of invisibility that had characterized my childhood. Jackson took the microphone next, thanking everyone for coming. After acknowledging Stephanie's parents with elaborate compliments, he turned his attention to me. "And a special thanks to my sister Abigail for actually showing up today," he said with a smirk. "Mark this date, everyone. April 23rd, the day Abby remembered she has a family." More laughter followed, louder this time. I felt eyes turn toward me, some curious, others amused at my expense. "Maybe next time she will even bring that husband of hers," Jackson continued. "If he exists. None of us have actually met him." My mother stood nearby, a tight smile on her face that did nothing to disguise her enjoyment of my discomfort. Stephanie, however, looked uncomfortable, whispering something to Jackson that he casually brushed off. As guests returned to mingling after the toasts, my mother approached, eyeing my dress with a critical gaze. "That color does nothing for your complexion, Abigail," she said. "And you really should have done something more with your hair. This is a formal occasion." "My appearance seems to be the least of your concerns, Mother, considering you placed me at a table with people who do not know me," I replied, my voice quiet but firm. Her eyes narrowed. "Do not start with your sensitivity. This is Jackson's day, not everything is about you." "I never said it was," I countered. "I simply expected basic courtesy." "Courtesy?" she scoffed. "Like the courtesy you have shown by abandoning your family responsibilities? Jackson has been handling everything while you play house in Chicago." The injustice of her statement finally pushed me past politeness. "I have a successful career and a happy marriage. That is hardly playing house." "A career?" My mother laughed dismissively. "Filing papers at some insignificant firm is not a career, Abigail. And your marriage? To a man none of us have even met? For all we know, you could be making him up to save face." Our voices had risen slightly, attracting attention from nearby guests. My father approached, his expression thunderous. "Is there a problem here?" he demanded. "Abigail is being difficult," my mother reported. "As usual." "I am simply defending myself," I said, struggling to maintain composure. "I will not be spoken to this way." My father's face reddened. "Who do you think you are? You disappear for years, barely communicate, then show up expecting special treatment." "I do not expect special treatment," I replied. "Just basic respect." Jackson joined the growing scene, placing a protective arm around our mother. "Still making everything about yourself, Abby? Some things never change." "You have no idea what my life is like," I said, my voice stronger now. "Neither of you do, because you have never bothered to ask." "What is there to know?" Jackson scoffed. "You abandoned your family to live some mediocre life in Chicago." "My life is far from mediocre," I stated firmly. "I am a senior investment analyst now. And my artwork is being featured in galleries." My father laughed outright. "Artwork? Still clinging to that childish hobby? Next you will tell us you are a famous artist." "I sell my paintings under a pseudonym," I admitted. "They do quite well, actually." "Now she is lying," my mother said to the gathering crowd. Abigail always did have an active imagination. The humiliation of being called a liar in front of dozens of guests broke something inside me. Years of suppressed anger bubbled to the surface. "I have never lied to you," I said clearly. "You simply never cared enough to know the truth about my life." My father stepped closer, his voice dangerously quiet. "How dare you speak to us this way at your brother's engagement party? After everything we have done for you." "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked. "Besides criticize, diminish, and ignore me my entire life?" The party had gone silent, all attention focused on our confrontation. Stephanie stood at the edge of the crowd, her expression troubled. "That is enough," my father roared. "You ungrateful, attention-seeking little." His words cut off as he grabbed my arm, his grip painful. I tried to pull away, but his anger gave him strength. With a forceful shove, he pushed me backward. Time seemed to slow as I lost my balance. The sound of splashing filled my ears as I fell directly into the fountain behind me. Cold water engulfed me, soaking my carefully chosen dress and ruining my hair and makeup. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. As I sat up in the fountain, water streaming down my face, my father pointed at me, his expression contorted with rage. "You are not my daughter anymore," he shouted. "I should never have let you come today." From somewhere in the crowd, a voice called out, "She is lucky they even let her in." To my horror, scattered applause followed the comment. Humiliation washed over me, more chilling than the fountain water. Jackson smirked openly while my mother simply turned away, more concerned with the scene I had caused than my welfare. With as much dignity as I could muster, I stood in the fountain, water dripping from my ruined dress. Something shifted inside me as I looked at the family I had spent my life trying to please. For the first time, I saw them clearly, their cruelty and pettiness laid bare. I looked directly at my father and said, in a clear voice that carried across the now silent garden, "Remember this moment." More laughter followed, guests emboldened by my father's action joining in the mockery. Someone took a photo. Another person clapped slowly. My humiliation was now entertainment. I climbed out of the fountain with as much grace as possible, water streaming from my soaked dress. The weight of the wet fabric made movement difficult, but I refused to show additional weakness. A server hesitantly approached with a towel, only to be waved away by my mother. "Abigail can see herself out," she said coldly. "She has done enough damage for one day." Stephanie broke away from Jackson and stepped toward me. "Let me help you," she said quietly, genuine concern in her expression. Before she could reach me, Jackson grabbed her arm. "Leave her, Steph. This is typical Abigail drama." I stood alone, dripping and humiliated, yet strangely calm. The clarity that had begun when my father pushed me now crystallized into perfect understanding. These people were never going to change. No achievement, no success would ever make them see my worth. I am sorry you had to witness this, my father addressed the crowd, his businessman charm returning. Family complications, you understand. Please enjoy the rest of the celebration. Guests began to murmur among themselves, some looking uncomfortable with what they had witnessed, others seeming almost entertained by the family drama. A few elderly relatives shot me disapproving glances, clearly siding with my parents. I was contemplating the most dignified exit when the sound of tires on gravel drew attention toward the front of the estate. A sleek black luxury car pulled into view, followed by a second vehicle of the same model. The cars stopped near the garden entrance, and security personnel in dark suits emerged from the second vehicle. Confused whispers spread through the crowd. My father frowned, clearly not expecting additional guests. Who on earth? He began. The rear door of the first car opened, and a tall figure stepped out. My heart leaped in recognition as Nathan surveyed the scene, his normally warm eyes taking in my soaked appearance with a flash of controlled anger. Who is that? I heard someone whisper. Security, remove this intruder, my father commanded, gesturing to his own security staff. Nathan walked calmly toward me, his tailored suit and commanding presence causing the security guards to hesitate. Even soaking wet and humiliated, I felt a smile form on my lips at the sight of him. Are you all right? He asked quietly when he reached me, removing his jacket and placing it around my shoulders. I am now, I replied, surprising myself with how true it felt. My father approached, irritation clear on his face. Excuse me, this is a private event. Who are you? Nathan turned to face him, his expression coolly professional. Nathan Montgomery, Abigail's husband. A ripple of interest passed through the crowd. Nathan's name clearly registered with some of the business associates present, their expressions shifting from dismissal to surprise. Montgomery, one of my father's colleagues said. Of Montgomery Tech Solutions? Nathan nodded slightly but kept his focus on my father. Mr. Williamson, I presume? Interesting way to treat your daughter. My father faltered momentarily before regaining his composure. This is a family matter. You are not welcome here. Where my wife is concerned, I am very much involved, Nathan replied, his voice carrying the authority that had built a technology empire. My mother approached, her social instincts kicking in as she recognized the shifting atmosphere. Mr. Montgomery, I apologize for the confusion. Had we known who you were, you would have treated Abigail with basic human decency? Nathan finished for her. That says everything I need to know about your family values, Mrs. Williamson. Jackson pushed forward, clearly confused by the deference some guests were now showing Nathan. Look, I do not know who you think you are, but this is my engagement party, and you are ruining it. Nathan smiled slightly. Actually, Jackson, I believe that started when your father pushed your sister into a fountain. But timing aside, you should know exactly who I am. Particularly since Montgomery Tech is finalizing the acquisition of Williamson Industries next week. The color drained from my father's face. What did you just say? Oh, he did not tell you? Nathan looked at me with feigned surprise. Your father has been in negotiations to sell the company. The board voted last week. We have been reviewing the books for months. That is impossible, my father sputtered. I would never sell to your estranged daughter's husband? Nathan finished. No, you probably would not have if you had known. But you never bothered to learn anything about Abigail's life, including who she married. Murmurs swept through the crowd as the implications became clear. My mother swayed slightly, grabbing a nearby chair for support. This cannot be legal, Jackson interjected, panic rising in his voice. Dad, tell him this is not happening. My father's expression had shifted from anger to calculation. We should discuss this privately, Montgomery. Business and family are separate matters. Not in this case, Nathan replied. And there is one more detail you should know. He placed his arm around my shoulders, a gesture of support rather than possession. Abigail and I have been purchasing shares in Williamson Industries for the past 3 years. As of last month, we hold 26% of the company, making us the majority shareholders outside your immediate family holdings. Gasps and whispers erupted from the business associates present. My father's face had gone from red with anger to ashen with shock. "That is not possible," he whispered. "Very possible," Nathan countered. "Your regular stock sales to fund expansion gave us plenty of opportunity." Abigail's financial expertise proved quite valuable in the process. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear in my father's eyes as he looked at me. Not just concern for his business, but the dawning realization that he had severely underestimated the daughter he had dismissed for so long. "You," he began, unable to form a coherent response. The guests who had been laughing at my humiliation minutes earlier now looked at me with new interest, their expressions ranging from shock to grudging respect. Several of my father's business associates subtly moved closer to Nathan, networking instincts overriding social niceties. "I believe we have interrupted the celebrations long enough," Nathan said, addressing me rather than my family. "Shall we go?" I nodded, finally finding my voice. "Yes, I think we are done here." As we turned to leave, Stephanie stepped forward. "Abigail, I am so sorry about what happened. I had no idea." "This is not your fault, Stephanie," I assured her. "I hope you will be happy, truly." She glanced uncertainly at Jackson, whose face had crumpled into an expression of panicked confusion as he looked to our father for guidance. "This discussion is not over," my father called after us, desperation creeping into his voice. I paused and turned back to face my family one last time. "Yes, it is. For now, at least. Enjoy the rest of your party." A heavy silence fell over the garden as Nathan and I walked toward the exit. The security personnel he had brought with him flanked us discreetly, their presence preventing any further confrontation. I could feel dozens of eyes on my back, the weight of shock and speculation almost tangible in the air. We had nearly reached the cars when my father's voice rang out behind us. "Wait," he called, his tone a strange blend of command and plea. "We need to discuss this like rational adults." Nathan looked to me, making it clear this was my decision. I hesitated before turning around. My father stood several paces away, his normally confident posture now uncertain. "There is nothing to discuss today," I said calmly. "This is Jackson's engagement party. We can address business matters next week." "You cannot do this," my father insisted, lowering his voice as he stepped closer. "This company is our legacy, our family heritage." "A family that just disowned me," I reminded him. "Your words, not mine." My mother hurried over, her social mask completely abandoned in her panic. "Abigail, darling, your father was upset. He did not mean what he said." The sudden shift from dismissal to desperate affection was jarring. "He seemed quite clear, Mother." By now, several guests had edged closer, abandoning all pretense of not eavesdropping. Jackson pushed through them, his face flushed with anger. "This is insane," he spat. "You vanish for years and then return to destroy everything? This is exactly why no one wanted you around." Nathan tensed beside me, but I placed a restraining hand on his arm. "This situation is not about revenge, Jackson. It is about business. Nathan's company has been acquiring firms in your sector for years. Your engagement party is merely an unfortunate coincidence of timing." "Coincidence?" My father scoffed. "You expect us to believe that?" "Believe what you wish," Nathan interjected smoothly. "The paperwork tells its own story. We can review it all with your attorneys present next week." "There must be something we can work out," my father said, his voice dropping to ensure only we could hear. "Name your price." The naked desperation in his eyes might once have moved me, might once have been the validation I had spent my childhood seeking. Now it simply confirmed how little he understood me. "This is not about money," I said quietly. "It never was. Several of my father's colleagues had gathered nearby, their expressions calculating as they observed this shift in power. One of them, Bernard Hamilton, a man who had barely acknowledged my existence earlier, now stepped forward with an outstretched hand. "Mr. Montgomery, I had no idea of your connection to the Williamson family. Perhaps we could discuss potential opportunities at your convenience." Nathan nodded politely, but did not engage further, keeping his attention on the situation at hand. My mother tried a different approach, tears welling in her perfectly made-up eyes. "Abigail, think about what you are doing to this family. After everything we have given you." "What exactly did you give me, Mother?" I asked, my voice steady. "An education I was not allowed to choose? Material comforts without emotional support? The constant message that I would never measure up to Jackson?" Her mouth opened and closed without sound, genuine confusion in her expression. She truly did not understand. "You were always so independent," she finally managed. "You never seemed to need us the way Jackson did." "I needed you every day," I replied softly. "You just never noticed." From the periphery, I saw Stephanie approaching slowly, her expression troubled. "Jackson," she said quietly, "did you know about any of this? About how your family treated Abigail?" Jackson's face reddened further. "Steph, not now. This is business, not family therapy." "It seems relevant," she persisted, a new note of uncertainty in her voice. The crowd parted as additional guests moved toward the confrontation, the engagement celebration effectively over. Among them, I noticed several relatives who had never shown me kindness now looking at me with new interest. The transparent shift in their attitude confirmed everything I had come to understand about my family's world. "Mr. Montgomery," my father tried again, his businessman persona reasserting itself. "Surely we can come to an arrangement that benefits all parties. The Williamson name carries significant weight in our industry." "A name is just a name," Nathan replied. "What matters is how you treat people. I have witnessed enough today to inform my business decisions going forward." A woman I recognized as my mother's cousin approached hesitantly. "Abigail, I had no idea things were so difficult for you in the family. Your artwork is truly in galleries? Under what name do you show?" The sudden interest in my life felt hollow after years of indifference. "Abigail Montgomery," I answered simply. No pseudonym needed anymore. Her eyes widened. "The Abigail Montgomery who sold out that show at the Harrington Gallery last month? My friend purchased one of your pieces. She had no idea you were a Williamson." "I am not," I replied. "I am a Montgomery now." My father made one last attempt, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You cannot just walk away from your responsibilities to this family. Think carefully about what you are doing, Abigail." I looked at him directly, the fear that had defined our relationship finally absent. "I have thought about it for years. My responsibility now is to myself and my husband. The business negotiations will proceed according to the contracts already in place." "This is not over," he warned. "You are right," I agreed. "The acquisition process takes time. Your attorneys will receive all the necessary documentation on Monday." Nathan checked his watch. "We should go. We have dinner reservations." I nodded, suddenly exhausted by the confrontation. As we turned to leave once more, I addressed the gathered crowd. "Thank you all for witnessing this family reunion. I wish Jackson and Stephanie every happiness in their marriage. I hope they build something healthier than what came before." Stephanie gave me a small, uncertain smile while Jackson glared, his future suddenly less secure than he had always assumed. As we walked to the car, I heard my father calling after us, his voice stripped of its usual authority. For the first time in my life, I did not turn back at his command. In the quiet sanctuary of the car, I finally allowed myself to shake. Nathan held me close as years of tension released in silent tears. "I am so sorry you went through that," he said softly. "Are you okay?" Strangely, yes, I answered, surprising myself with the truth of it. For the first time, I saw them clearly for who they are. And they saw me really saw me, even if it was for all the wrong reasons. You were magnificent, Nathan said, brushing hair from my damp face. I have never been prouder to be your husband. The drive back to our hotel was silent, both of us processing the events of the afternoon. I changed out of my wet clothes, the ruined dress a small price for the clarity I had gained. Over dinner at a quiet restaurant far from my parents' neighborhood, we discussed the confrontation. I feel oddly peaceful, I admitted. Like something inside me has finally settled. Freedom often feels that way, Nathan replied. The question now is what you want to do about the business situation. I considered this carefully. I do not want to destroy my father's company out of spite. That would make me no better than him. But I do want changes. The following weeks brought a flurry of activity. My father's attorneys contacted Nathan's team immediately, seeking to negotiate terms that would leave the Williamson family with control of their company. Nathan, true to his word, left these decisions to me. This is your family legacy, he said. You decide what happens next. I decided on clear boundaries rather than destruction. We proceeded with the acquisition, but structured it to allow my father to remain as figurehead CEO with significantly reduced authority. Jackson's position was maintained, but with actual performance metrics and accountability, something he had never experienced. The business negotiations revealed just how precarious the company's position had been. My father's stubborn refusal to modernize had left Williamson Industries vulnerable, a fact he had hidden from the family while maintaining their lavish lifestyle. The changes we implemented probably saved the company from eventual bankruptcy, though I doubted my father would ever acknowledge this. 2 weeks after the engagement party debacle, I received a text message from Stephanie. Can we meet for coffee? Just us. I agreed with some trepidation. We met at a neutral cafe halfway between our respective homes. I wanted to apologize, Stephanie said immediately. I had no idea how your family treated you. Jackson always made it sound like you had abandoned them, not the other way around. Family narratives can be powerful, I replied. I do not blame you for believing what you were told. She twisted her engagement ring nervously. The thing is, I am seeing Jackson differently now. The way he reacted when his position was threatened, it made me question things. Are you reconsidering the engagement? I asked gently. I do not know, she admitted. I love him, but I am not sure I know who he really is anymore. I reached across the table to squeeze her hand. Whatever you decide, make sure it is for your happiness, not anyone else's. Our conversation opened the door to an unexpected friendship. Stephanie began reaching out regularly, sometimes for advice, sometimes just to talk. Through her, I gained insight into the aftermath of the confrontation within my family. My mother had taken to her bed for several days, oscillating between tearful pleas for reconciliation and bitter accusations of betrayal. My father had thrown himself into damage control, both at the company and within their social circle. Jackson had apparently broken several items in a rage before settling into sullen compliance with the new business reality. Several relatives contacted me directly, some with genuine apologies for their past indifference, others transparently seeking advantage in the new power dynamic. I accepted the sincere overtures while politely deflecting the opportunistic ones. 3 months after the engagement party, I held my first major art exhibition under my own name. The gallery owner had been thrilled to discover that the anonymous artist whose work had been selling steadily was actually Abigail Montgomery, now connected to both the Williamson fortune and Montgomery Tech. This will draw tremendous interest, she assured me. The opening night arrived, the gallery elegantly arranged with my paintings, each one representing a piece of my journey from suppression to expression. Nathan stood proudly by my side as collectors and critics circulated through the space. To my surprise, my mother appeared halfway through the evening, alone and subdued. These are remarkable, she said, studying a particularly emotional piece. I had no idea you were so talented. Thank you, I replied simply. Your father wanted to come, she added, though her tone suggested otherwise. He is still adjusting. I understand, I said, and strangely, I did. My father's pride would take much longer to bend than my mother's social instincts. We should have supported your art, she said suddenly. I see that now. The admission, however small, felt significant. Yes, you should have. Our relationship remained tentative, occasional lunches where we carefully avoided difficult topics, but it was more than I had expected. My father maintained his distance, communicating only through attorneys regarding business matters. Jackson eventually followed his lead, though Stephanie continued to build her own relationship with me independent of her fiancé. Throughout this period, I continued therapy, working through the complex emotions stirred up by the confrontation and its aftermath. My therapist helped me recognize that true healing did not depend on my family's acknowledgement of past wrongs. Their capacity for insight may never match your need for validation, she explained. Your peace must come from within. Nathan remained my steadfast supporter, celebrating my successes and comforting me through difficult days. His family embraced me with increasing warmth, providing the loving extended family I had never experienced. 6 months after the fountain incident, Jackson and Stephanie's wedding took place, a somewhat subdued affair compared to the elaborate engagement party. I attended with Nathan, our presence acknowledged but not celebrated by my parents. Stephanie had insisted on inviting us, creating tension with Jackson that showed in the strained atmosphere of the event. During the reception, my father approached our table, his expression carefully neutral. The quarterly reports show improvement, he said, as if discussing the weather. Your suggestions about the Asian markets proved accurate. It was as close to approval as he could manage, business success being the only language he truly understood. I am glad to hear it, I replied. As Nathan and I danced later that evening, I realized I no longer felt like an outsider at family events. The difference was not in how they treated me, but in how I viewed myself. The need for their approval had finally released its grip on my heart. Happy? Nathan asked, holding me close as we swayed to the music. Complete, I answered truthfully. A year after the engagement party confrontation, Nathan and I decided to start our own family. The prospect of becoming parents prompted serious discussions about the family patterns we wanted to break and the new traditions we hoped to create. Our children will never doubt they are loved, I vowed. Their achievements will be celebrated, not expected. Their failures will be learning opportunities, not disappointments. They will know their worth comes from who they are, not what they accomplish, Nathan added. As we built our future together, I finally understood that my worth had never been dependent on my family's recognition. Their limitations had been their own, not reflections of my value. This realization, more than any business success or artistic achievement, marked my true liberation from the past. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family or questioned your worth because of how others treated you, remember that their perception does not define your reality. Building boundaries and finding people who truly see you is not selfish. It is essential for healing. Have you experienced similar family dynamics or had to create distance for your own well-being? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength through difficult family situations. Thank you for listening to my journey from invisibility to empowerment. I hope it helps you recognize your own worth, regardless of whether others do.